Welcome to the Actual Fluency Podcast. Each week you'll find inspirational, motivational interviews with some of the world's best language learners, industry experts, all trying to help you to learn foreign languages better, faster, and more efficiently. And here we go. If you're looking for a language teacher to enhance your language learning, then I highly recommend italki. Italki is the world's biggest tutoring platform, and you can find thousands of teachers and tutors at very reasonable prices. Get a free lesson after completing your first lesson by going to languageteacher.co. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 157 of the Actual Fluency Podcast. I'm excited to be back after a short summer break. Today I'm joined by Pablo from DreamingSpanish.com, and we're going to be talking about how he learned Japanese in just 6 months and his Spanish learning materials project, Dreaming Spanish. So this is going to be an interesting one. I'm happy to be back. There has been quite a few things going on, so I decided to record a full episode of updates and what's going on, and I put that on the secondary podcast, which is called Actual Fluency Extra. So if you want to hear me rant about what's the latest Polyglot events, what I've been up to over the summer, and the new event, the Polyglot Cruise, which I highly recommend you check out, by the way. Tickets are selling out pretty fast. So we've got, I think there's about 70 tickets left of the normal tier. So if you're interested in coming on a week-long luxury holiday in the company of some amazing polyglots, and me, as I'll be there too, then check out polyglotcruise.com. But other than that, I'll keep the sort of long and ranting update to the extra podcast, the Actual Fluency Extra. So subscribe to that. I think I might do a little bit more with that in the coming months. We'll see. But for now, enjoy the episode with Pablo, and I'll see you in the next one. All right. Well, Pablo, welcome to the show. And do you want to start off by giving everyone a little idea of who you are, where you're from, and what you've been doing in terms of languages for up until now?
Thank you, Chris. Yes, sure. I'm original from Spain, but I guess as many people on this podcast, I've been living abroad for quite a few years. Every now and then I still go back to Spain, and I've spent like a year or two in between my travels. And I guess the first language that I learned, like many people, was English, or at least the first one that I learned well. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I didn't consider myself somebody who had a particular interest in languages. I did like languages to a certain point, and I had studied French a little bit during primary school and a little bit in middle school. And after living abroad, I went to do an Erasmus in Finland. I did study some Finnish in school, but I didn't do that well. Like I passed my courses, but that's it. I didn't really learn any Finnish that I could actually go and use in the streets. And then I went to study a master's in the US, and I was pretty happy with my level of English at that point. And I was thinking that I didn't want to completely forget the little French that I still remembered. So I did learned a bit more French there. I studied some courses in university and started reading some books in French. But when I really got into languages was when a bit before moving to Japan. I decided to continue my studies, to continue doing grad school. And I wanted to find a PhD program somewhere. I had enough of the US. Like I didn't hate it, but I wanted to go somewhere more interesting where they will have a different culture. And I decided to go to Japan, and they accepted me. So I had 6 months to prepare before going to Japan to learn Japanese, basically. And at the beginning, I thought I would take it easy because in 6 months, my expectations were not very high. I didn't think that I would be able to learn a lot of Japanese. And I got a scholarship for 3 years. So I thought that in 3 years living in Japan, I could get to a kind of decent level of Japanese. But then within my first 2 weeks of learning Japanese online with online resources, I found out about old Japanese all the time, which I guess is pretty known in, at least within the people who are learning Japanese. And that really motivated me to really spend a lot of time on it and to really get immersed even before going to the country. And I did that in almost every waking hour while I was in Spain for those 6 months before going to Japan. Almost every waking hour, I would be either reading Japanese or listening to Japanese.
Wow.
And basically I followed the method explained in the website, All Japanese All the Time. It really helped me learn the Japanese writing, learn the kanji, learn to read them and write them. And in the website, in All Japanese All the Time, the author also recommends to use Anki and to do sentence mining and to use it to learn the meaning of words and to learn the grammar and stuff. For me, that didn't work that well. I tried to do it. Anki worked really well to learn the kanji, to learn the characters, but it didn't work very well for me for the vocabulary and the grammar. So after a while trying it and it not working for me, I gave up and I just continued with the full immersion. And I got to Japan. My level was okay. Like I could go to a shop and ask for whatever I needed. A lot of the time I wouldn't understand their answer. So it took me some time also of living in Japan to get to a decent level. But after half a year there, I could have like a daily conversation without problems. And after about 1 year there, I didn't have any problems if I needed to go to the hospital or to the bank or anything. And actually what I studied in university didn't have anything to do with languages. I studied computer science. And I kind of see a pattern here because a few people that I know who are now into languages, they study computer science or they're programmers. I don't know if you've met many more like me, like IT guys who switched to languages.
Yeah, for sure. Or they have it as a side hobby where the main job as a programmer or developer.
Yeah, right.
To do with the kind of the problem solving aspect of a language where you're trying to fill in the blanks in a way or kind of build something that you also do when you do development.
Yeah, I wonder why. But yeah, when I was in Japan, I joined a PhD program in computer science, which I didn't finish, by the way. I'm not a doctor. I didn't get my degree. But I was there. I was doing research in a lab in a university. But honestly, I didn't really get that much into my research. Like I would be spending my time in my lab and really trying to do the research. But what really motivated me was to learn the language. And I found a share house there. I was living in Kyoto, by the way. I found a share house only with Japanese people. So I would try to get as much immersion as I could. At the beginning, I even avoided meeting other foreigners. And by the end of my stay there, I hadn't done that much progress in my research. I was feeling really stuck. I even tried extending my stay there for 6 months, but I couldn't really make any progress. So I decided to do something different with my life. At that moment, I was watching, I think, too many TED Talks. And you know how they suggest that you should follow your dreams, follow your passion. And I was thinking, okay, but I don't have a dream. What should I do? And after thinking about it for a month or two, I decided to get into languages because I had learned Japanese really well. Even comparing myself with other people who had spent there many years or even who had majored in Japanese in university, I felt that I had learned in a way also that was a lot of fun because I hadn't had to spend any time attending a language classroom or using textbooks. So I thought that I could help other people learn languages by finding better methods. And I started researching for alternative methods and alternative schools who taught in a different way. And I found about a language school in Thailand, in Bangkok, that teaches Thai to foreigners. And they use a method who, at that moment, really matched with my experience, really matched with all the experience that I had learning languages before and with my previous impressions. And this method, you learn basically like a baby. You go to class and you just listen to the teachers talk to you. And the teachers make it really easy to understand by using a lot of gestures, using pictures, drawing on the whiteboard. And basically you acquire it just by listening to them, really. They don't translate anything to English. There's no homework. There's no exams. At the beginning, even at the beginner level, they don't allow you to write notes, wow, to use a dictionary in class. Yeah. So it's very, very naturalistic. And I wanted to see if this would work, if this method would work. And for me, the best way was to try it on myself. So I went to Thailand, I went to Bangkok, and I spent there 1 year learning Thai. I didn't have infinite money, so I needed to work at the same time. So I started working part-time as a developer, as a web developer. And after my stay in Thailand learning Thai, I learned to a level that I thought was quite good for the time that I had spent on it. And I decided to use what I had learned to help other people learn languages. I tried another project after that, which didn't work that well. I tried to coach people into learning Chinese because I had learned Japanese myself. So I thought, okay, I'll do the same as when I learned Japanese. I'll try to learn Chinese. And since I have to spend all this time looking for learning resources and stuff, I'll just share that information with other people who are also learning. And I'm going to be kind of like their coach for learning Chinese.
Right.
Yeah. I tried to do that for a while, but my approach now was a bit different compared to when I was learning Japanese. I was trying to look for really comprehensible materials. So yeah, by the way, the method in this school in Bangkok is based on comprehensible input, which I've seen that some of your other guests also have talked about that. So I think nowadays it's pretty known within the world of language learning. So this method is heavily based on that, heavily based on Stephen Krashen and on comprehensible input.
Right. The idea is that you should be studying some materials that are, is it just above your level or is it at your level? I can't remember.
So yeah, they talk about I+1, so slightly above. Yeah. But what slightly above means is just that there are some new words. So in the input that you're getting, whatever you're listening to or reading, of course, you still need some new words there, so you'll get exposed to new words. But the context should be so clear that most of the time you encounter new words, their meaning is clear from the context.
Right.
And at the very beginning, because the language itself, the other words don't provide that context because you don't know many words yet. You need things like pictures and gestures and etc. And yeah, so I tried doing this for Chinese, but I just couldn't find enough comprehensible resources, enough like things that are easy enough. And I tried looking for it really, really heavily. And some of the easiest things that I found were, for example, Peppa Pig. Yeah, you know that Peppa Pig has been translated to many languages.
My niece loves that show, so I've seen quite a bit of it.
Yeah, so I watched dozens of hours in Chinese, and I did learn some words, but it still felt really slow. And even myself, I've learned a few languages before, and even I couldn't really feel too motivated to continue doing that. So I couldn't hope to really get other people to do what I was doing if it was being hard for me already.
Right.
Yeah. So I decided that just there's not enough comprehensible material out there. So I decided to make my own videos. That's how DreamingSpanish began. I started making my own videos to teach Spanish to other people. And I'm not super motivated to teach Spanish specifically. If I had money, probably I would have paid for somebody to make Chinese videos. I would have hired them and worked with them to start making a Chinese course. But at the beginning, I was by myself. And my native languages are Spanish and Catalan, but I guess that many more people would be interested in learning Spanish. So I decided to start making Spanish videos.
Fantastic. And that brings us up to today, modern day.
Yeah, because I'm still doing that. Now I don't need to work on the side anymore, because for a long time while I was recording the videos, I was still working part-time as a web developer. But on September last year, I started working full-time on my videos. Now I've been working on them for a bit more than 2 years. And yeah, I'm trying to make this into a full platform that people can use to learn Spanish from 0 to whatever level they want to get at. So the way I envision it is to have hundreds and hundreds of hours of content, maybe even 1,000 or 2,000 hours of content on a platform that you can go there, register, and start watching things at your level that are really easy to understand, but also really engaging, really, really fun to watch.
Right. Well, congratulations on that. That's a huge achievement to have built up something that you can now do full time as you please. You found your passion as in the TED Talks.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a huge, well done. I know a lot of people listening are interested in how they can sort of make languages a bigger part of their lives, or whether that's a part-time extra income or it's a full-time new job that they create for themselves. So I appreciate that you have done that and showed a way that people can actually do that. I know it's not for everyone, and of course, you need to put a lot of work into it and have the quality, but
it's not easy. Yeah.
No, it's not easy. That's definitely true. It takes a while, and it's a long learning process as well. I mean, I've gone through the same, 5 years, the last 5 or 6 years. So I definitely know it takes patience. Yeah. But I think there are opportunities out there for anyone to at least supplement your main income and make some beer money, or make an extra savings fund, or build something and that can kind of pay off early, but will take some time to build into a full-time thing, which is fine. That's part of the process, right?
Yeah, definitely. And if you don't care that much about what you do, then it's definitely easier. Because for me, I had a very concrete, very specific idea of what I want to do.
Yeah. So if your native language is Estonian or something, I would probably start out by just doing some private lessons on italki and just seeing what students need and what they struggle with, and just record videos based on that, or even text, whatever, and just bundle it up and blog a bit about it, and there you go. You can even sell to your own students. That's the clever part. You can say, this is how you do this, but if you want a little bit more information on it, I've recorded an hour-long video on, I don't know, verb aspects or whatever, and you sell that for €10, you make 100 of those, and who knows where that can go.
Yeah, definitely. And anytime you do something publicly, you publish some video that anybody can access, or you open a website that you've been working on, or anything, any of these things, it's at the beginning, it's scary because you don't know how people are going to react. So doing that first step, like publishing your first video or publishing your first blog post at the beginning, is scary. But then you don't know how many how many opportunities that can open to you that you were not expecting. And that has happened with my videos. There have been many people who have contacted me with business opportunities and with opportunities for collaboration and doing things that I was not expecting and I was not looking for. And for example, even with the imaginary guy who's teaching Estonian that you just mentioned, if you just make some Estonian videos publicly available for everybody, just the amount of people who are going to find it and the audience that you're going to build is just going to help you, for example, to sell your private lessons. And then you can probably even charge more for your lessons because you're the guy on YouTube.
Exactly, yeah. And then you can choose how many hours you want to work per week. So if you just want to have 10 hours of students per week, then you just increase your price till you have 10 students left. Then that's also your best students, which is the kind of a double benefit there, that you have the most serious students who know your value and you work the amount of hours you want and you're building up your sort of side business with the videos and even courses you can build into with something like Teachable. I mean, it's extremely easy to set up. So yeah, that was a bit of a tangent, but I think it's nice to have at least sometimes mention some of these things because people, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there very talented languages, and they wonder how they can turn that into, let's say, a side income, or maybe they have a job they don't like, or maybe they don't even have a job and they would like to kind of make their own. And I think languages is just so obvious because, like, let's say take Spanish, for example. I mean, how many people are learning Spanish right now? It's millions and millions. So if you can just get 20 students, you're fine. I mean, that's your job made right there. And then you can use those materials and experiences to make a Spanish course, or, you know, I know people who do retreats. So for instance, my friend Kirsten, she does French and German retreats. So it's a week, you know, it's pretty, it's not cheap, but you get everything included. So all the food, all the, you know, the hotels and everything. And you just go on like an immersion week. You could host those if you were in like the Estonian example again. So there's just so much opportunity for people who put in the effort and just get themselves out there, as you started out saying.
Yeah, definitely. And if your focus is building a lifestyle business and what you care about is not having to work too much and living in the place where you want to be, then that's definitely a possibility. And I think it's not that hard. Just finding enough students to pay yourself a salary and be able to live in Costa Rica or in Thailand or wherever.
Yeah, it's so flexible, and you've got Skype and everything. So there's as long as you have internet, you're fine.
Yeah. In my case, more than the lifestyle itself, I value how many people I can help. So what I'm trying to achieve is more creating materials and creating a platform for people to really learn cheaply, so that anybody who wants to learn Spanish can really take advantage of it. So if I can spend an hour doing something that in the future is going to help 1,000 or 10,000 people, I prefer to do that than giving private lessons, for example.
Yeah.
And maybe in the future, I can hire teachers who give private lessons, and that way grow the business, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the kind of goal that people should embrace when they start out on the process. But the private lessons are just the fastest way to get some money going and some experience that you can use to build that thing which is going to change the lives of so many other people. So I think I definitely agree with you. That's the path that I would suggest. But I think you have to start there, because, you know, let's say you build a Spanish course, well, where are you going to sell it? Who are you going to sell it to? But if you have 100 students at various times of the year, then those are your best customers, right? So they would be your first initial, and that would be the way to sell it. So yeah, those are good tips there. Some business. I always wanted to talk more about business, but it's not really the aim of this. If people are interested in this stuff, I would give 2 places you can go for that. Obviously, there are lots of business podcasts like Just Business, but if you want to talk about language business specifically, then there is the Language Influencer Summit, which is in Berlin. So that's like a conference for people who want to do something with languages or already doing it and want to do more. That's in the last weekend of March. I believe that's 31 of March next year. So check that out, Language Influencer Summit. There's going to be presentations of people who have built amazing businesses in languages, and there's going to be lots of opportunities for Q&A and networking and that kind of stuff. The other thing is my own event, just to pitch it while I can, is the Polyglot Cruise. One of the topics on that, which sails in April next year, is business. So basically, it's going to be about learning languages, of course, but also we're going to dedicate an evening or two to talk about how you can get started and do the things that we just talked about here. And that's going to be a handful of people who have made great, successful businesses in language learning that you can ask and hang out with all week. So highly recommend Polyglot Cruise as well. We'll just take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, italki, but we'll be right back. On this podcast, I've interviewed hundreds of language learners, some of the world's greatest polyglots and industry experts. And one thing they all agree on is the value of one-to-one tutoring lessons. And for this, I highly recommend italki. They have thousands of teachers in all price ranges, and they even have certified teachers who have taken diplomas or have degrees in the language you're learning. So whether you're just brushing up on your Italian ahead of a trip to Rome, or you want to master Russian to take the exam, or whatever your goals are in languages, italki has a tutor suitable for you. And compared to private tutoring offline, it's really affordable. You can find informal tutors down to $5 an hour, and you can have trial lessons for even less. So if you want to master a language from the comfort of your own home, and you even get a $10 credit when you complete your first lesson, go to languageteacher.co and check out italki. It might be the best thing you do for your language learning this year. Going back to your language learning, I'm sure somebody is thinking when they hear you talk about your story, and of course you have to kind of keep it simple because otherwise it would take a long time to tell, but it sounds like it was very easy for you to learn, especially Japanese. Do you think that was because of a method or any kind of personal, some kind of personal talent or way you study or work? Or was it, what do you think made it like that? Because I'm sure there are lots of people out there who have learned or tried to learn, especially the Asian languages, and found them just really difficult and taken them years to get anywhere. So do you have any idea what kind of differentiated the whole thing for you?
I can guess, because I think one important thing when learning languages, and especially when learning languages that are very different and languages that have such a strange writing system as Japanese, is to not be a perfectionist, to be ready to accept, to take in whatever you can take in at this moment, and not worry about understanding every single detail of the grammar or the pronunciation or the meaning of the words. And I can talk in more detail about the specific method that I followed. So as I said, I found this website, All Japanese All the Time. What it recommends is to go full immersion in Japanese. So what I did, when I began, I just, right from the start, I set my computer to Japanese, my phone to Japanese. I bought a bunch of Japanese books. I downloaded a bunch of Japanese TV shows and movies. And at the beginning, I would just watch them without worrying too much about understanding a lot. I would try to get things with subtitles and with subtitles in Japanese, and that would help a bit. And then I would try to use other resources like find tales and find stories to read online that you can get the meaning of words using an extension on your browser. Or I got also some side-by-side books that were both in Japanese or in English. And every time a word would start to sound familiar, I would check it up on a dictionary. But I never really tried to obsess over understanding every single detail. And I continued that immersion for a while. One thing that really helped was to learn the kanji, to learn the Japanese writing system. And for that, I cannot stress enough the magic of RTK, of remembering the kanji, by Heisig, which there's the Japanese version, remembering the kanji, and there's the Chinese version, remembering the hanji. And I used that book together with Anki to make flashcards. And the way this book works is you make little stories to memorize the different meaning and the writing of the characters. Because one thing about Japanese and Chinese characters is that the same parts get used over and over. So in this book, the book gives you a meaning for each of the little parts that form the kanji. And then you make a story, you put together a story tying all the different parts of the characters together with the meaning of each character. And actually gave a presentation about this in last year's Polyglot Gathering. You can find it on YouTube. I think it's called How I Learned 2,000 Chinese Characters in 50 Days. And I found that was really helpful because in Japanese, even if you don't know many words, knowing the kanji, knowing the Chinese characters in the text gives you a lot of meaning, gives you a lot of information about what's written. So that helped me a lot to be able to use my computer in Japanese, my phone in Japanese, and to start reading books quite early on. I think I started reading my first novel in Japanese after 1 month or so of starting. But the thing is, of course, I didn't understand every single detail. But understanding with the few words that I knew about Japanese and with the knowledge of the characters, that was enough to get the story, to get what was going on. The novel, I remember, it was The Alchemist. And yeah, The Alchemist is probably doesn't use very, very difficult vocabulary. And yeah, just knowing the kanji, knowing the Chinese characters was enough to understand that the guy was a shepherd, and then he went to Morocco, and then he was traveling the desert, and he met some tribes and stuff. So I got most of what was going on. So that was really helpful, learning the kanji.
And how many hours would you say you spend on average per day from the time you knew you were going to Japan to the day you got there? So it was 6 months, you said, right?
Yeah, 6 months. I think like almost every waking hour.
Really? So
yeah.
We're talking 16 hours a day.
Yeah, I think most days I did about that because, yeah, like I didn't have anything else to do. I was not during those 6 months. I was not working or studying, so I was like, let's just watch some anime or some Japanese movies or TV shows, and then I would read for some time every day. I would finish my repetitions on Anki for the characters. And yeah, the rest of the time I would just read. When I got tired, I would just watch a movie or a TV show.
Right. So that's a good distinction as well to make. That, I mean, I'm sure it's helpful to watch TV in your native language. I mean, I know it is useful, I should say, but it's a different level of studying than sitting with, let's say, Anki, which is quite mentally challenging. I would say you kind of. Well, maybe it's just me, but after a while, you just kind of, I feel like my brain starts hurting because it's just too much information almost. Or if you're sitting with a textbook, that can be quite intense as well. So I guess that's the important bit is to do what you feel like, right? You want to make sure it's fun and not like a torture chamber of learning languages where you just sit and do 16 hours of Anki every day.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel it now more than ever because now I'm still trying to improve my Thai. I still want to get to a higher level of Thai. And I'm not as motivated as I was during those 6 months before going to Japan. So I do need to do things that are less mentally taxing and more entertaining, things that are just fun to do by themselves.
Right. Well, I would say I've definitely discovered one of your talents, and that's your ability to focus, because I think most people, even if they had all day to study, they just wouldn't do it. I mean, they would get so tired of studying, or they would just get bored with the materials, so that's definitely one talent that I can tell you that I can see you have.
Yeah, and then when I tried to study Chinese, when I told you I was trying to get other people to kind of learn with me, and I would be coaching them, I couldn't really do it that much. Like I would sit down and trying to watch Peppa Pig or other easy videos for like 30 minutes, and I would be like, "Whoa, this is enough." So I do think that watching TV and cartoons and stuff, it's great, but it's better when you already understand enough that you're having fun and you're genuinely enjoying what you're watching.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the comprehensible input as well, is that if the material is too difficult for you, then it's just not going to be fun to work with. If if the third word is unknown.
Yeah, definitely.
It's fun to sit and I don't know even what you would do then. Would you look up every word or something? I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it in any case. So you just need to step back and say, okay, I'm not quite at the level where this book or text is understandable to me, and you have to find something else. So a simpler book, maybe reduced vocabulary books, or maybe online, there's simple news sites, or you can use online tools like that, or online a different method even does, like apps and services and stuff. So that was something that I kind of missed in the beginning as well, because I thought that it was my lack of concentration, or my why can't I concentrate anymore? I'm getting old, and it's been a while since I studied anything seriously, like in school when you had to study for like a chemistry exam or something. I did that for like 12 hours, but I think the reason for that is the same reason as you did really well in Japanese. Is there was an impending deadline, and there was a real motivating factor there. Because if you arrived in Japan and you wouldn't be able to say anything, you would consider those 6 months wasted, because you knew you were going to stay in Japan for a while, so you might as well use it. And the same with me, the night before a chemistry exam is like, okay, it's tomorrow. I have to get it done now. Whereas if I open up a book that's too difficult, I don't really need to read it. Nobody knows I'm reading it. Finishing it won't really change my life. There's just no motivation there, really. So it's much better to simply go for what you can understand and what you enjoy as well. I would say is important as well. Sometimes you can read and watch stuff that you might not be able to understand as much, but you enjoy kind of the subject matter anyway. So that gives you that general idea of what they're talking about. So that definitely helps you.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why in the videos that I'm making, I'm really focusing on making it very easy to understand. And the videos, they're leveled. So there's super beginner level, which is really, really easy. And even somebody who doesn't know any Spanish should be able to get most of what's going on. And then like different levels, depending on how much people know. But also try to talk about many different topics, and try to have guests on my videos also to tell us like their stories, and try to make it so that everybody has something to enjoy. I even have some videos playing video games, for example, right?
Right. That's a good idea. People love video games, and they have that kind of second life aspect where you can live yourself into the story, and you can kind of shut off the world for a second and be part of this imaginary world, which is that's what I like about books. That when you read a book that's really well written, you feel like you are in that story, and that's really helpful for language learning if you can create that kind of illusion with video games or books, or even podcasts can probably do that to some degree. So that's kind of like the secret, I guess, to doing 16 hours a day is having that deadline, but also doing things that you find interesting. So you're not doing 16 hours of textbooks a day. You're choosing depending on your energy level and what you feel like at that time.
Yeah, definitely. And one really good example is babies. Like children they get everything done to them. Like people feed them, people make them wear clothes. They get everything done. They don't have any impending feeling that, I need to learn this, because if I don't, I won't be able to order food or to find a place to stay or something. No, they don't care. It's just included within their daily dose of fun is people talking to them. So they just do it because it's included with whatever they're doing, which is important to them because it's like talking to their parents or to friends, or right.
Exactly. Yeah. They're just kind of fully immersed, and they're not afraid of making mistakes either when they get a little bit older, which is another interesting thing that you also mentioned when you came to Japan, or when you were doing Japanese, is that you weren't afraid to make mistakes, and you didn't expect to be perfect in any way. So you could just kind of try it out and apply whatever you were able to do.
Sure. And this, of course, is going to be different for different people, how afraid they are of making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But still, there are many things that can be done to avoid that, even because I wouldn't say that you need to be able to power through shyness to be able to learn a language, because there's plenty of shy people who succeed at learning a language. And if you are better at the language, if you just have a deeper knowledge of the language, then you're probably going to just feel more confident and have fewer problems going in talking to people and fewer you're not going to be so afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah, but in general, that's definitely true. I mean, all the advice and all the suggestions and tips on the podcast are always going to be depending on the listener. You know, what is their personality like, and what do you like to do? It doesn't mean and that's one thing I learned actually doing the podcast is there's no one way to do any language learning. You know, there's a million different ways, and we all have our different kind of preferences when it comes to how to learn. And I think that you're definitely right that not everyone can just run into a crowd and start speaking Japanese after 6 months. You know, that that's definitely true. That's not going to happen. But I would say for those people, let's say you're shy and introverted or both, pushing yourself a little bit can really grow a lot in not just language learning, but also personally. You might find it easier and easier to socialize with people or talk to strangers or practice your foreign languages or whatever. So in that sense, the advice almost applies universally, because if you are an extrovert, you really like talking to people, you don't care how bad you make mistakes or anything, it'll be good for you because that's your natural kind of drive. But if you're the opposite, then I would say it also helps because it can push you a little bit to do something that you know, a little bit of discomfort is always good for growth, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Getting out of your comfort zone, it always helps you expand your horizons and realizing that you can do things that before you didn't think you could do.
Yeah, definitely.
It's only that it's hard, right? So expecting, there are a lot of people who they're just not going to be able to do it. So at least in my case, because I'm trying to get many people, for example, with my videos, right? I'm trying to get many people to learn Spanish. In that case, you don't want to rely on people being able to do things that are like too hard or that are gonna take a big effort, right? You wanna make it as easy for everybody to do and to learn as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Have fun with it. That's really important too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not easy. I think that I've said that many times on the show is that it's simple. Maybe sometimes it can be simple, but it's never easy. You know, the amount of work you need to learn a language to a degree, to a good level is a lot. But the counterpoint that I always bring up, just to reassure people a little bit, because there are a lot of people listening who might have, you know, a full-time job or plus more hours, and they have, you know, kids and everything to take care of. So the idea of studying, let's say, just a couple of hours per day is completely impossible. So obviously that's going to take some longer time. But for me, the benefits of learning a language starts from the first week, really, when you can say hello to someone in a different language and just how are you, and they just start smiling because why are you learning my language? You know, for me, the pleasure starts there. So you don't need to be reciting like high level poems or anything for people to get something positive out of you learning the language, and therefore you also getting something positive out of it. It can be as simple as ordering your coffee in the language, or, you know, saying how are you, and obviously build from there.
Okay. For me, maybe I'm like very ambitious, but usually when I start a language, I really want to get to like really like a really good level, like being able to understand TV and reading books and stuff like that. So I don't usually worry too much about like what's going to be like at the beginning, if I can say this or that correctly, because I know that when I really go and try to use it and go to the country, like my level is going to be already quite good to be able to like handle a conversation.
Yeah, of course. And for you, the beginning in German will be having, let's say, an intermediate conversation with someone. So that's your first enjoyment, whereas your later enjoyment will be something like reading The Alchemist back to front without having to look up, you know, every other word. So it's just different targets for different people and how much time you have to allocate. But I think everyone should have an end goal, or at least a target, because obviously you can always improve. Even for your native language, you can always get better. But I think a target of what you want to do with the language would be a great start to have and a good to work towards. But I would never consider it like an either or situation. I think with languages, you get so much along the way, even if you're not quite at your target level yet as well.
Yeah, definitely. What you said about having a goal is important, and something that's missing that most platforms and most apps and most courses don't provide in a very clear, very easy to understand way is a feeling for where you're at and how long it's going to take for you to get where you want to be, a feeling of progress.
Right. Like an evaluation kind of.
Yes, and in terms that are easy to understand and that are very clear in terms of what you're really going to be able to do. In terms that people really care about, like, okay, when am I gonna be able to go and order something, or when am I gonna be able to like have a boyfriend or have a girlfriend with who I only speak the language. Things like that, things that people really can easily understand and can really relate to.
Yeah.
And when you start a course, or even when you start like using Duolingo, I don't know if you really get a feeling for where you're going to be at and what you're going to be able to do when you finish the three, whatever language, right?
Not at all, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is very important. If somebody can give a clear feeling for that, then you won a lot. You can get people to really be interested in what you're offering them.
Yeah, because you have like the European framework thingies where you get officially tested and stuff. That it doesn't really work because they test all 4 skills, and
definitely
speaking. Then you can be C2 in speaking, but if you're useless in writing and you don't know any letters, then you're not going to get the C2 exam, and then you don't actually know where you are. So that's actually a really good idea. I think apps or maybe methods or even textbooks could use more of that says maybe in the first chapter it will say after this chapter you should be able to, and then people know if they're not, then they need to go back and revise some of the materials.
Yeah, so each unit should have that, and you also should get a perspective of the whole trip. Like, where are you in the overall path to your goal, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the reason that's a kind of a motivational failure sometimes, because it's very hard to evaluate your progress if you don't know what you're able to do. So let's say I studied for a month and I don't really feel any different, then it can be demotivating because you don't feel like you're making any progress either. So if you had some way of knowing this month I could do this, which I couldn't do last month, that could actually push you ahead as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm feeling that right now with my Thai, because I'm pretty comfortable intermediate level. I would say high intermediate, and I'm right at the point at which, sure, I'm learning new words, but I wouldn't be able to tell you like how many new words I know that I didn't know last month.
Right.
And and I think for most people that can feel kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it's hard to track as well. It's really strange. How that works in terms of motivation, if it's just kind of like a mystery what my level is.
Definitely.
Yeah, super cool. So in terms of the interesting thing you said about Thai was all these like no homework, no writing, no translations. To what degree did you feel like that worked, and is that something that you've implemented in your own videos and teaching, or is there some of it where you said, I didn't really like that part of it, so I've changed it?
So most of the issues that I found with this method are about the particular way they implemented it in this school, or about specific things that certain teachers did which didn't really adhere to the method. So maybe one teacher every now and then would cheat and would like give you the English word, or would get somebody else, some other student, to translate the words so the rest of the class understood, things like that. But besides that, my main concerns were not with the method or the way it was taught, but rather with limitations that are specific to not having many teachers, because you don't have many students.
Right.
And that school, I mean, the Thai program is not that big. So in some classes, we would have maybe like 20, 25 students, but in many classes, we would be like 3 or 4 people. So the amount of teachers, the amount of salaries that you can pay having those students is limited. And we had 10 teachers, which is it's not bad. You still get to hear different ways of speaking. But that meant that the amount of levels that they could have was limited. So they only had, because most classes, there will be 2 teachers teaching at the same time. And it's great because they can have a conversation. You can see actual Thai people having a conversation and see how the language is actually used. But that also means that there's only 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And for many hours during the day, the intermediate and advanced levels are together. The classes are together.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so you don't get any more advanced language that you would get if you went to the intermediate level. And then even the last 2 hours of the day, between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., all the 3 levels are together. There's not even distinction between beginner and intermediate. So those are limitations that I would rather prefer weren't there. But of course, I understand that unless they get more students, they cannot get more teachers, and they cannot have more levels, right?
Of course, yeah, they're limited by kind of how much money's coming in for both. But it's cool that they did it in such a I don't know if it's revolutionary, but it's definitely a different way than most language schools. And having 2 teachers, like you said, I think that's a great start as well.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And my overall experience is that it worked. Like, I acquired Thai, and now I can understand even TV shows. I can understand them pretty well, maybe like 70-80% of what's going on. And I've never opened a dictionary in Thai. I've never opened a textbook. I've never looked up the meaning of a word. So I know it works. I don't know if it's the most efficient way of learning. So I do have I do get a feeling that there are some things that could be made a bit more efficient. And I'm trying to apply that on my videos. But I think that definitely you learn and you acquire the language even if you don't make any connections with your native language.
Right. That's cool. And I hope that the general school program, normal language programs in high schools and stuff, I hope that they take some inspiration from some of these ideas and start to make it a little bit more like that, because I find that often language learning in schools is so boring, and it's just repeating grammar tables, and it's just so boring. So I hope that they actually get to improve that a little bit and take leaf out of this Thai school.
I know that now, since this last few years, there have been a lot of teachers in middle schools and high schools in the US, in Europe a bit, but more in the US, who are using comprehensible input-based methods.
Yeah,
that's becoming quite popular. So I think that's good. Those are good news, and I hope it continues becoming more popular. I hope that universities pick up on it, because there's barely any teachers in universities who are really doing this.
Oh, yeah. Universities are the worst, because you see people at the end.
Universities are the worst.
Right. Have that as a soundbite. That's actually really funny. Well, I mean, they're the worst because when you see people do a language degree in university, they come out with this amazing level of comprehension, listening, reading, but speaking is just awful. So they can basically read high-level, even poetry and academic writing, and they can translate perfectly from one language to the other. But then they go into a bar and they get they just can't really have a conversation. And I know obviously that's quite a generalization, that it doesn't happen on every university degree, especially I guess if you're going for interpretation, and then you definitely have to know how to talk. But in general, I find that the university degrees are very much centered around reading and writing. So that's a problem where I think speaking is possibly more important. I guess it depends what you want to achieve, but for most people, I would guess that speaking is their number one priority.
Yeah, and even language schools haven't really picked up on the trend and on the fact that people are having hard time and they're not really learning much by just studying grammar and studying translation and reading.
Because they pass the test still, so that seems good for them.
Sure.
But
I hope at some point people start realizing that tests don't really match what you need for real life.
Yeah, me too. But that's probably going to take a while. But anyway, my last question today is you call your website Dreaming Spanish, or your project Dreaming Spanish. Does that mean that you have when you sleep you have your headphones in and it's trying to you get the vocabulary while you sleep?
Not really. Like, I actually tried to do that when I started learning Japanese.
Really?
This website recommended you that you do that. The guy was really hardcore into just being listening to Japanese like all the time. He said that even when he was talking to his girlfriend, he would be listening. He would have one earphone in his ear and be listening to Japanese at the same time.
Right.
Myself, I did try it at the beginning. I didn't like it because every now and then it would wake me up. I didn't really believe that it worked.
Right.
Yeah, I still don't believe that it really does anything for you because comprehensible input, right? If you need to understand, if you need to get information from the context to be able to understand new words and stuff, then when you're sleeping, you're not really doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a, I don't know what to call it, like it's a bit too hardcore for me. I've tried as well. I don't think it works at all, but it was just funny that your website had that title. I just want to get your perspective on that as well.
No, but there's a reason for the name Dreaming Spanish. And it's that something that I experienced when I was really into learning a language and when I was getting a lot of exposure is that I would dream in the language. And when I was around like 1 or 2 months in learning Japanese, I started dreaming in Japanese. So that's when. Japanese? So I had a dream in which either somebody else or me, myself, we were speaking in Japanese.
Right. Yeah, that's super cool. I've tried that before as well. It's kind of strange.
So for me, if you're getting that means that you're doing the right thing. You're getting a lot of immersion. You're doing enough for really be learning the language at a good pace.
Yeah, you're on your way to somewhere. That's really cool. So just give people, the full address of that project and any other place you want people to check out, any place where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, just go to youtube.com/DreamingSpanish or just search Dreaming Spanish on YouTube. And you'll find me. If you go to the description of any of the videos, you can get links to my Twitter and to a blog that I write. I do have a blog, but I write more about language acquisition theory and not that much about practical stuff about learning a language.
Okay.
But if people are interested on theory, then they can check that out. And I have links to all of that in the description of every video.
Okay, cool. I'll add a link to your YouTube channel in the show notes as well, so people can find it from there.
Cool. And especially anybody who's interested in learning Spanish, I have videos for every level: super beginner, intermediate. This week I'm starting to make advanced videos, so there's going to be things for every level.
Cool. Super cool. And do you do the videos yourself, or do you have like a speaking partner or another teacher to spar with in the videos?
For now, there's nobody else who has joined me in the project and working on it full time with me. There's a supporter that I have. There's Luke. Luke is in a school in China, but he supports me more morally. He's been supporting me with money for a long time, and that's what helped me start working on this full time. But now he's more of a moral support, and we still meet every week. And it works for me as a way to keep myself accountable.
Yeah.
But people who appear on my videos are people who I managed to convince to just come and record a video with me, either friends or family or people that I meet where I live. But in the future, I really hope to get somebody else to join my project that will really help me and to get some of the workload. And also people to appear on my videos. In the future, my goal is not to become a famous YouTuber, but rather to get other people who are more interesting and more handsome to appear on my videos. and for myself to be more on the business side and on the strategy side of things.
Right. Well, like going back to the business discussion, that's the natural progression. You start out doing everything yourself, and then as the business has more and more success, you can sort of offload that and hire people to do some things full time that maybe it's not ideal for you to do or be part of. So you can focus more on the strategy part of it and growing marketing, all the other important elements, sales even. That's kind of the most important thing for a business is to sell more of the product that it offers, whether that's coaching or teaching or courses.
Yes, definitely. In the future, I would love also to expand into other languages, but for now, just Spanish.
That's a big project, but I think with your experience in these languages, that could be some great kind of personal experience that you can use, especially for the Japanese and Thai, I would say. So that would be cool if you went into that at some point. But obviously, it's not a good idea to divide your attention too much. You want to make sure to put all your focus into one project before moving on to the next.
Exactly. People ask me, are you going to do other languages? Are you going to do Catalan? But for now, I really want to focus on having a really good solution, a really good product, and not divide my attention, not make it less than it can be. Because unless we make it like really, really good, not going to get a lot of attention. So I want to focus on managing to solve the problem really, really well. And when we know the perfect solution, then we can expand and do it in other languages.
Yeah, that has to be the focus for anything you do in business. Is quality comes first. With bad quality, you're never going to really make it anywhere. So I agree with that plan of action for you.
Great.
Fantastic. Well, Pablo, thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing your language learning experience and your tips and advice about language learning, and also the business tangent that we had. I really enjoyed that too. And like I said, if people want more of that, check out the Influencer Summit or the cruise, which is going to be really cool to have that kind of business focus. And in the meantime, thank you for coming and have a fantastic day.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Actual Fluency Podcast. I really appreciate having you here today. Just before you leave, I just want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is italki. Italki is a tutoring platform where you can find affordable tutors for every language in the world, pretty much. So get started today and get a free $10 credit when you book your first lesson. If you go to actualfluency.com/italki, that's spelled ITALKI. So give it a go and feel how tutoring can really boost and enhance your language learning.